Hi, good morning, and this is Funny Minds. I'm your host, El Biss, and my co-host,
Edward Biss, how are you?
And today we have on Mr. Allen Prell. And Allen is an author of a great book called I Miss Hugs, Kisses, and Conversations. Good morning, Allen. How are you? Can you hear us, Allen? I guess I can't hear you.
Hey, good morning. I'm trying to figure out whether or not the computer or the cell phone is going to win out, and I think the cell phone is winning out. So let me see if I can leave this one on the computer and go from there.
There you are. Hi, Allen.
Good day.
How are you today?
You know, I'm in a beautiful community called Depot Bay, Oregon, and it's on the coast of Oregon. It has a lot of meaning to this book of I Miss Hugs, Kisses, and Conversations. And if you look at the entry of the book cover, that is Depot Bay, Oregon.
Well, Allen, I want to start with your career in life. Let's start with that. Like what you did. You were in medical offices, and you're an account manager in life sciences, what have you. Well, start us off with where you started in your career.
That's fine. This is a great beginning, and I thank you for that question and for the opportunity here. When I was about 20 years old, give or take, I ended up taking an EMT course at the local community college and found myself working in a trauma center in the ER in Burbank, California. And I was pretty much unqualified to do whatever they were asking me to do since I was newly trained. But what I remember more than anything else is helping the first patient and having them say, "Thank you so much. I feel so much better." And I just, at that point, I was hooked. And thankfully, and great, my education, I love the sciences. I love the whole idea about just overall healthcare. But that created a 10-year stint in the ER. And then I graduated into the pharmaceutical industry, where I spent some time not only in the Southern California area, but then transitioned into the Oregon and Pacific Northwest. And over the years, I've sold in the pharmaceutical, the pain, diabetes market, the diagnostics market, as far as cholesterol, cardiovascular disease, the genetics market. And you work with people, you educate people, you listen to their stories. And that is really where my career has been following. And I've enjoyed every minute of it.
The genetics area must have been very interesting.
Well, it is interesting, and to a point that you just brought up, we're learning. We're at the infancy stages of it. It was oncology or genetics testing based on cancer and cancer markers. We're not quite there yet. Insurances also, we're not quite there yet, but it is interesting. It's science at its best, and we're learning about it every day.
But they've come leaps and bounds. I mean, they've done so much, over the past number of years that I feel that, they're close. They're close on a lot of things, but not quite completely, but they're doing great work with cancer.
They're doing great work. The one thing that I think is interesting is that if you're 96% or greater on the genetic markers matching up what they have on file to what you have within your system, they consider you to be a positive and high risk for oncology or cancer issues down the road. If you're 95% and lower, they say, well, we're going to keep an eye on it. So we really do have to hone it in. But to your point, we've come a long way. Science, I remember them saying we have just mapped the genomic code for the human body, and everybody was celebrating. Well, the next question that nobody really wanted to look at head on was, now what? And I think that we can say that about a lot of things in life. Now what? And
Now
so,
what? Where do we
it's
go from
just,
here?
and I love your whole thing about having fun and laughing and all, because if you look at life from that perspective, it's always going to be relationships, it's always going to be careers, it's always going to be now I've learned this, now what? And genetics is one of those big factors that we have a lot of opportunities to learn, but we have to be cautious about what we expect from it and what our expectations are, because I think sometimes people's expectations are a little bit higher than what we can currently do.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
Yes, you're right.
Especially in regards to medical.
And are you retired now, or are you still working?
I am not retired. This is a difficult time for the healthcare industry. We're trying to get approvals. We're trying to get new advances. And so I'm still in the process of looking for my next project. I like to euphemistically call it that. So my last position was with a infusion company. And now I'm looking for anything in the life sciences area, and I'm looking for my next opportunity.
Well, it's funny. Everybody says they can't wait to retire. And if you're the type of person who's been, busy all your life, going, doing, you retire and you say, okay, it's great, I retired. And then you're bored. You get bored and you have to find something else, and you have to start working
I
again
think you're right about that. I know two people directly within my own knowledge of friends and colleagues that are 70 and 75. And one of them is an anesthesiologist that has, other ramifications beyond what he's currently doing, all with healthcare. Another one's a retired psychiatrist who owns a lab and is creating the most incredible advances with his lab. If you love sciences and if you understand the human condition, you'll realize it's always a next chapter. And there is no such thing as retirement. It's what can I learn? What can I apply? How can I explore more? So yeah, I have no intentions, if I can help it, of retiring anytime soon. I'm loving what I did, loving what I do at this point with my publication. And I'm looking forward to seeing how it will benefit others and get into other areas of either psychology, sociology, or whatever it might take me to.
That's wonderful. But the where you lived in California and now Oregon, that's a big change, right? It's a
It's a
really big
huge change, and one that I welcomed. When I lived in Southern California for as long as I did, I lived in the LA area, and nobody knew you. You kind of fit in. It was always a game of, who's bigger, who's bad, who's got the biggest cars, jewelry, whatever the case may be, careers, who's more successful. When I moved to the Northwest, it was more of a humanistic approach. Let me get to know you, get to know your neighbors. And you'll find out, as I put into the book I Missed, the good news is that when you're in LA or any other large city, you blend in, nobody knows you, they leave you alone. When you come to a smaller town, they get to know you and they know your business. So the good news is they get to know you. The bad news is they get to know you.
Yeah.
So I needed to really understand that, the neighbors they're going to know who we are and what we do and our business. And that, some people welcome that. I had to adjust to that. I welcomed it, but I needed to adjust to that.
Okay. Okay. So you're living like a more simpler life in Oregon, and it's a lot healthier probably than California. And
well, healthier, I would say, is a matter of perspective, but it's a simpler life. Yes, we have lakes and streams and beautiful mountains and snow and 4 seasons. That part of it I love. I like the community. I like the people. But then I'm a little bit more on the liberal leaning. And people always think that Oregon in the Northwest is more liberal leaning. There's some pockets there of a little bit more stringent ideology, and that's fine. As long as we can all discuss it openly, we're good. But when it came down to the healthcare industry, it's a little bit more rigid when it comes to insurance and what's approved. So that makes things a challenge in our community.
Okay. All right. Well, now I'd like to get into your book. because it's very interesting. And your wife, was suffered with mental illness, which is, you know, in this country, very, very big and very, I think a lot of people don't want to talk about it, or they don't want to admit to it, or they don't want to go for help. And, but you dealt with it. So give
I
us,
did deal with it. And I'll tell you this, and this is something that I hope people walk away from. You just mentioned it. There's a lot of stigma, there's a lot of shame. And I
Mhm.
think if everybody looks into their backyard, if you will, everybody knows somebody, everybody, whether it be a colleague, a friend, their relatives, everybody knows somebody who's afflicted with some type of a mental illness. Now, there's a broad brush right there. She had bipolar, but there's schizophrenia. We can go down the road. I'm not going to get into details on it, but it's
Right.
one that I embraced. I was told about when I initially met Linda. She told me she was guided by her doctor not to reveal this to anybody she dated because it was something that she should keep private. She said, I have
Mhm.
bipolar, just wanting to let you know that. And being young, a bit naive, I went, okay, whatever, we'll deal with it. And that's when I was like 25. So
Okay.
clearly it was an education, and that's what I deal with the book, even after her passing and moving forward. People just simply have to be a little bit more aware of who the significant other is, who their friends are dating, in order to know the bigger picture.
Well, dealing with a person that has bipolar disorder, and I did a long time ago, and it's very, very difficult. The highs and the lows. A lot of times you walk on eggshells. You never know what you're coming home to, or what's going to go on. Everything could be great one minute and fall apart the next. So it tends to, after a while, I feel, put a weight on your shoulders that's so tremendously hard to carry at times. I don't know how you felt, but that's how I felt in dealing with this person. I wasn't married to them. So it became an issue of, do you want to live like this the rest of your life with this person who doesn't want to get help? Your wife sought help, but I don't know how you felt in regard to the emotional aspects of what you had to go through in dealing with all of this.
Well, to your point, and I thank you for bringing this up, and I dealt with it in a little bit of more of a scientific, I know it's the wrong word for it, but because I
Right.
worked with doctors in the healthcare industry, I understood the therapy and what it was supposed to accomplish. I understood the medications and what they were supposed to do. I understood the titration. I looked at when a prescription was given to us, I looked into it and said, what are our expectations from this? So it helped me manage it better. Did it work? Not really. I mean, it was more of, like I said, my coping mechanism than anything else. But when I came home and I would find out, she's been asleep all day. Well, nothing bad was done, but now why has she been asleep all day? Then you come into
Mm-hmm.
the mania section, which is sunny and a little bit of heat, and you realize that mania is going to sit in. And you get friends calling you and saying, your wife called me. She was on the phone for 2 hours. I can't deal with this. She called me 3 times this week. She was going through a Rolodex and just calling people one after another after another. How are you? What's
Right.
going on? And so now it's time to either get a medication adjustment, which is very difficult for most families to deal with.
Right.
Understand that you can up it, you can down it, add another one to it. But there's also a point, and I think it's important, when you have to recognize that things are completely out of control. There's a danger here, not a safety factor to our relationship. And you
Mm-hmm.
start the committing process through the ER to get them committed so that they can start the healing process. And that is a completely different subject matter and a completely different thinking. So, in my opinion, there was no option but to keep moving forward. I know a lot of people, one of them mentioned in my book, where they just simply said, as you did, they hit the brick wall and they said, I can't live my life like this anymore. I don't
Mhm.
have my life. I love this person. I care for this person. However, I just can't do it. I don't
Right.
think I ever hit that wall, even at the end stages. I don't know why. My current wife says I have a lot of patience, perseverance. I don't like giving up. I'm a salesman in my mind, account manager, call it what you want. I don't like giving up. I always like to look for the solutions to the problem.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm not one to give up either, but the the strain was so overpowering, and working and raising my children and not being married to that person. It just became too hard, especially when the person would not go for help. Had the person gone for help and things, I probably would have stuck it out, and tried to help them, because you don't know what medications are going to work, and what prescriptions you get with the strains and stuff. If it's just a touch and go, a trial and error, what have you. But when people don't seek the help, it's very hard on everyone else.
I agree with you, and I think seeking help is a broad spectrum too. Because even if the person seeks help, does that help the family dynamics? And the answer, in short, was not really. Help is a matter of management. Management is not a cure. There's never going to be a cure for the mental illness. So you
Right.
have to understand is if they are looking for help, what is their expectations? What are the family's expectations? Our definition of looking for help was you've got a problem. Let's see if the medication will help resolve the current crisis.
Exactly.
If the medication
Exactly.
doesn't work, that's a matter. Now that we're talking a time game, and they are willing to help. Most people want to do it. They want to help, but it's never going to be a cure. And I think that we have to distinguish between when somebody's looking for help, are we looking for a cure or just management of a disease state? In our case, we're looking for a disease state. So if you want to look for help, take, for instance, celebrities that we know of. Britney Spears is a good example.
Right.
She, everybody was saying is she needs to go for help. She was being managed by a doctor. She was being under medications. Outwardly, though, the people did not know what was going on behind the scenes. So they're saying she needs help. You look at the current celebrities who say things that are outlandish. They need help. They know that. But I think that people are looking for that instantaneous cure or management or control, and that does not happen with
It
mental illness.
doesn't.
Yeah, like
There's
you're
no
actually
instantaneous anything. It's a long-term project, and
mm,
I don't have the patience for it, but I found out within me I needed to find that patience.
yeah. There's no point where you're fixed.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
It's
no,
not.
no. There is
That's
no
not how
cure.
it
There's no
works.
fix. There's a management. It's the same thing. I used to be in the pain management field.
Hmm.
And I know with the
Right.
opioid crisis that we all have faced, and
Yep.
people simply says, this is addicting. Well, it is addicting to the wrong personality. If you have a habitual habit, it could be addicting. If this
Right.
is prescribed for just control and management, your one thing you have to understand is you're never going to take the pain away. You're going to make
Hmm.
it manageable. You're going to make it tolerable so people can function, but you're never going to take the pain away. You're never going to cure the disease. So I think
Right.
that people have to
Yeah.
go in with their understanding is if I make this on a scale of 1 to 10, a 6, and the medication makes it a 5, it's working. It's
Yeah.
not what I would like. It's fine. With my
And
situation,
that was never
and I
designed
know
to
this,
be long
yeah,
term. It was only supposed to be short term.
yeah. And I saw what was, manageable, and I dealt with it and realizing this person's still manic. And I'm dealing with it the best. There's no harm to the community, although the community may have seen it different. So that's how
Hmm.
I did
Yeah.
it. And I respect when you say, the person did not want help. I think we have to understand is what their perspective was, what their takeaway was their expectations were, and what our expectations are. So
Right.
I think it's something that we all have to kind of process.
So your wife passed away.
Correct?
Okay. So now you're a widow. And being a widow, and whether you're a widow, you're alone. Whether you're a widow, you're divorced, or you don't have a significant other, you're alone. but you had a relationship before that. So thus the title of your story that you wrote, I Miss Hugs, Kisses, and Conversations, is very, very important, because I think as humans, we are not meant to be alone. You know, there are some people, and it's very low percentage of people that don't want to bother with other people for whatever reasons, but the majority of the human race, I think that we're meant to be with other people. And I'm sure it was very hard for you, because I know it was hard for me, to all of a sudden not have that significant other to talk to do things with, to go out to dinner, or whatever it was that your life was like. It's very, very hard to lose all of that.
Well, you bring up a very good point, and it was a slow progression. It wasn't an overnight. I watched the diminishing of her disease state, and I saw what was going on, and I understood it. Toward the end, I go into details that I won't share right now about what it was like to go through the grieving process. But you're right. We all are human beings. We want to be hugged. We want compassion. We want to talk. We want that conversation, even if we don't agree with what the outcome is. We want those kisses, that connection. We want that embracing. So I find out that later on, about 2-3 months into it, that yes, I was, people go, oh, you're single now, you're a free dude, you can do whatever you want, go dating, sow your oats, do whatever you want. At my age, at that time, my mid-50s, and I'm thinking, I'm not looking to be a wild and crazy guy. I miss those hugs, kisses, and conversations. And my children ask me the same question. They go, how can you date within 3 or 4 months of mom's passing? How can you date so soon? I didn't look at it as dating. I looked at it as just meeting people. I'm an extrovert, as you can tell. I was one of those people who was seeking out and just saying, I haven't dated in 30 years. What is it like? How has it changed? What's the dating game like? And so I always say now in the book, the dating game, what is the deal makers? What is the deal breakers? I make it into a game. And I said to my children, and I remember to this day, I miss your mother's hugs, kisses, and conversation. I said, I miss it. I miss that connection.
Yeah.
And the dating world is crazy. There's so many crazies
but
out
it is
there.
fun. If you're a person like me, I enjoy meeting people. I enjoy learning their stories. We all had baggage at that point. I had my baggage, they have their baggage. Now you have to start asking yourselves, what's important moving forward? Do you want somebody who, I met a person who had a horse and a little bit of a ranch. And I realized that I was not going to take priority in that. And I said that this horse takes a lot of your time. Well, of course it does. I've got to brush her. I've got to feed her. I've got to let her out to okay, so where do I fit into this whole animal farm husbandry thing? The answer was, in short, as I didn't. And so, you have to realize, okay, so what are people offering in their lifestyle, and how are you going to fit in? A person that has 4 or 5 children and then grandchildren, well, you have the children, the grandchildren, maybe even the parents. Where do I fit in now? The answer is at the bottom. You got to build yourself up with that whole thing. And I bring that up in the book as well, as how do you fit into the family structure?
I considered myself, going on dating sites, I considered us like cyberbots. We were like cyberbots. You look through the pictures, you read the profiles, and I find that most people don't read profiles, but I do. So I would read profiles, and if something looked interesting, I wasn't afraid to make the first move and say hi, blah blah blah, this, that, and the other thing. And we could probably do 3 episodes on the dating world, but
I agree with you. And it's fun. It's a dating game, like I said. And you're right. They use the word, what I don't want. Well, tell me what you do want. And you're right. Most of the guys don't read. It's unfortunate, but they don't. They go by the looks, and the women go by a little bit on the looks, but more on the personality, and they read into it.
Right.
And I tell you, and it's always amazes me that men and women do get together because of how differently we look at things.
And I do know, I do have several friends that went on and met somebody and married them. I don't want to get married again, but they married them, and great guys. I mean, but they kissed a lot of frogs along the way, you know? They really did.
Well, I mean, it's absolutely a numbers game.
It is.
It is a numbers game. And to your point, I make it a statement, and it's interesting. I did a comedy sketch for Toastmasters on this. Once you close your eyes, everybody looks the same. So when you
Yeah,
look at it,
after a couple of Jack
you
Daniels,
can hug
same
a
thing.
frog, you can kiss a frog, you can have a conversation with a frog. And, I still think that people who have, sight issues might be believed as far as being blind, they're actually in a better world than we are because they're not that judgmental. We are automatically judgmental with our visual. And if you have a conversation with somebody, I guarantee you 100% that after your conversation, if you turned away and walked away and somebody said, what color were their eyes? You were looking right into their eyes when you were having this conversation. Most people could not tell you the color of their eyes.
Oh, I look at people's eyes first, and then their facial expressions when they talk, and then their body movements, because you don't have to say anything and you can say a lot, but I go for the eyes first, because the
Well,
eyes
I
are the
give you
windows of the
100%
world.
credit because most people, at least on the guys, and you could have what were they wearing? They could tell it, what we talked about. We could describe the conversation. And then all of a sudden that all important, and what color were their eyes? You know something? I don't know. And that is really, that tells you where their focus is on or not.
So, Alan, have you met somebody?
I have, and it's all written down there. And it was a wonderful meeting. I went into a bar that I don't drink. So you've asked me, why were you in a bar for? Because I was told that if you want to meet people, go to a bar. So I went to a couple of bars. And in this case, I went in. I'm not going to do the spoil alert, but I found somebody very special and found out that we had more in common than I realized. She was a person that wanted to pay for our first meal, and then we went back and forth on that because she didn't want to owe anybody anything. We found out we had a lot of commonalities. We also found out we had a lot of differences. I'm more of an tell. She's very analytical. She's very project oriented. We both know the chemistry, so we both understand that conversation. We're both well educated. That helps out quite a bit. And in the long run, she accepted the fact that I'm Jewish. And as she likes to say, Jew-ish, because I don't follow the as closely as I should. And I accepted the fact that her family came from a varied, religious background as well. I think we all have to accept each other, like I said before, for our baggages, both ways, and accept each other for our positives. In the long run, she gave me a very polite, either, get off the pot or make a decision. And it was clear to me that I already had the decision made. I just simply wasn't sharing it with her. And we go into how we combine households. I think that's important too in this day and age. We all have our house or apartment. We all have our own furniture, our own belongings. How do you combine households? So that is something else that I kind of touch on is how do you compromise? How do you compromise in a relationship? You both have what's important to you in life. Now you've got to bring it together. What do you dispose of? What do you build together? And that's another thing, going shopping for new furniture, for new art, for new decoratives. It's all a process, and it's quite a bit of fun if you just let it be part of that.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. That can be a lot of fun, And, there's no room for argument. There's a lot of room for discussion and compromise, but it can be a lot of fun to go through that process.
Well, I think it was. And I had a cat and a dog, and she had a dog. and we found out that the cat likes to claw. So that was determining furniture. And it's like, no, we're not going to get a, cloth furniture. We're going to get a leather furniture. And I'm not a big fan of leather because it's cold. Long story short, I gave in, I compromised, let her get the leather. I got my own chair, my own thing, and it happens to be leather too. But yeah, pets, everyone comes with, or not everyone, but quite a few people have their, pets that they're attached to. Are the
Right.
pets going to get together? Are they going to work out? My cat and her dog did not work out, but we worked it, we had to compromise on that.
I would think, honestly, I know how I am with my pets, and that could possibly be a deal breaker.
It could be, but you see, there you go.
People love
You have
their
the
animals.
deal makers and the deal breakers. And then for some people, my cat was absolutely a terror to this dog. And we had to keep them separated to some degree, but the cat looked at it as a game. The dog was coming around the corner, and it was like, so yeah, it was a challenge. But we learned that the animals are not going to rule our relationship, and we now have my dog remaining, and a very sweet dog. My mother-in-law is going to be moving in with us, and she has a dog. So there we're going again. We had to introduce a new animal into the house. But this is what the whole process is when you meet somebody new. They already have a life. They have their own family, their own pets.
Mhm.
And it's how do you compromise? How do you break that deal breaker or the deal maker? And I think that it's like we discussed, it's a fun game if we look at it that way.
Well, that's where, conversation comes in, because, I think people communicating with one another and being very honest in their communication goes a very long way, because people are not mind readers. I don't know what you're thinking unless you tell me, and if you get mad because I don't understand, if you didn't tell me, then you can't get mad. You have to communicate. Communication is one of the most important things, I think, in a relationship.
Well,
It is.
communicating,
And
how you communicate.
I recognize also that we bring up communications. I got my degree in communications and public speaking, but what I found is also culturally, we all speak a little bit different dialect if you're from the South or from the East Coast.
Right.
And people from the East Coast are a little bit more direct. They're a little bit more, it's a Seinfeld character, I always say, is we're a little bit honest,
Yes.
a little bit brutal honesty. And I'm being from the West Coast, and all of a sudden you're realizing you have a softer approach. We kind of hit and miss, we kind of hint at what we want, and then you have the East Coast person who just says it directly.
Oh yeah, that's me. That's
And
me. What
that's
you
an
see
East
is what
Coast
you get.
personality. And the two is like, we think on the West Coast that East Coast people are rude, and the people on the East Coast, so no, you're just lazy. So it works. Just say it. You know what you're saying, just
Get it
say
out
it.
there.
You don't have to beat around the bush, just spit it out. Well, there's a polite way of doing it. Who needs to be polite?
Exactly.
So I think
Exactly.
that's fun when it comes to people getting together. You could hear the accents, you could hear the dialogue, you could hear the cultural changes. And to me, if you have the love in your heart, and if you can have the love, the hugs, the kisses, the conversation, close your eyes, we all get together, we all work out, it all comes together.
And the older you get, it's not easy to find a partner, because you get set in your ways, and you've lived your life, you've both lived your lives in whatever aspect, and now you're older and you're trying to come together. So yeah, there is a lot of compromise, and intelligent people can understand that compromise.
I think that
Not
we should
easily
all,
sometimes, but
there should be a
it's
senior game on that one. There should be
yes.
absolutely a senior point, because you're right. We all come from a background. We all have our houses, our culture, our
Right.
jobs.
Right.
How do you blend that together? When you're young, there's no children. When you meet another person, they have 2 or 3 or 4 children. You blend a household together.
That's
There's a
just
lot
it.
of dynamics.
And you have to hope that the dynamics are really going to go very well with everybody, and I hope for your sake that everything's going very well, Alan.
I
So
think is going well. I'm spoiled. I have to say that much. I'm spoiled rotten. I have a wonderful
Aw.
wife.
Well, that's
We've
good.
come up, we have this beautiful house that we both agreed on to invest in.
Okay.
I just got my two new grandchildren. My daughter just gave birth to twins. I'm a grandfather for the first
Oh,
time.
congratulations.
And so there's a lot going on. I wish the job market was a little bit more relaxed and open, but that is something that I have to work with. I am very blessed. I really, I have health. And if you have health, you have wealth. If you have
And are you
that's the way I
working on
look at it.
something new? Are you working on another book?
I have some ideas in my mind, but right now I'm going to maybe just take this one where it can go, possibly looking at a senior dating game of some kind or a senior book on dating, on how to get through it, how to
Call
help
me. Call me. I'll give you
how
some
to
great
help people.
stories.
I'm doing a consulting on how to help people walk through the dating process, 40s, 50s as widowers and widows. And I think that is going to be a big factor. So I'm going to be working on something on that level.
Okay, that sounds great.
And I'll be giving a plug, the website that I just had designed for me, and I give kudos to the person who did it, is www.allenprell.com, and that's ALLENPRELL. So it's www.allenprell.com.
Okay, so that's where everybody can find you.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, Alan, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show. And kudos to your book. I really love it. And I really wish you well with it. And to my audience, we are funnyminds.com, and you can go on our website. And we do our episodes are video. So you will find us on Spotify and YouTube. And then the audio is on every single platform that there is. On the website, we have a store, so you can buy some silly things that say Funny Minds if you choose to. But most importantly, there are two organizations that we're very involved in, and that's Women's Breast Cancer and St. Jude's Children's Hospital. So when you go on the site, you'll see a big purple button. If you so decide, if you could push that purple button and donate, we would be very appreciative. And again, today we had Allen Prell on our show, author of I Miss Hugs, Kisses, and Conversations. You were a pleasure, Alan, to have on the show. I am so grateful that you were able to be with us today. And I wish you the best, and I hope your household comes together the way you want.
Brady Bunch.
Well,
Yes,
it's
the
going
Brady
to be a compromise. And I have to say thank you for allowing me to be on your show. This is a privilege. It's an honor. And thank you for sharing your audience with me.
Absolutely,
Thank
Alan. Thank you
you.
so much.
And to everybody, be happy, be safe, be healthy, be wise, smile, and laugh, because we all know that laughter is the best medicine. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye, Alan. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.